All right, hey guys. Today is kind of a special episode. I am with Swabs, and we are going to be going over pro communication. And what we really want to talk about is what do the pros talk about in their games, and what could you learn from the pro players? So, Swabs, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Swabs. I am the offlane player for LFM Esports in the HVC Pro League.
So, I want to start off with a few questions. In my channel, one of the most popular series I have is the 4 common mistakes people make on certain heroes. If I was to ask you maybe one or two common mistakes that happens with team league teams or even hero league teams for communication, what would you say one major communication mistake is?
Um, I'd say I think a lot of time, team people relay like information that you don't really need to know. Like, so in my team, like a lot of people talking at the same time can lead to some confusion. So I'd just make sure you're saying the simple things like where they're rotating, if someone's missing off the map, or like shot call, like camps, prepare for objective, those kind of things. So make sure it's good to communicate, but not a ton.
Not too much. So try to keep it on track. And that kind of brings me into a lot of the other questions that I have, which is when I was watching your replays and the scrims that you guys were doing. And guys, I do have the scrims recorded, so after this video, I will be linking to some of the scrims that you can listen to actual pro players communicate during games, and it'll be a lot of fun. So feel free to check those out afterwards. So one thing that I noticed when watching your scrims is you were very good at calling out the just the only thing that really mattered. So a lot of my viewers know I like to play Leoric when I get the off lane, and if anyone that's ever played with me, they know that when I hit level 13 and 16, I'm always calling out, I've reduced their damage, I've reduced their damage. And when I watched you play, I noticed that you never called that out. In fact, when you got into a team fight, some of the only things that you ever called out were entomb targets and targets that you wanted people to attack. So you'd call out specific people. They were like, this person's low, take this person out. This person is in the tomb, take this person out. And it was very quick to the point, and it was very specific information. So how do you choose what you like to explain and what you like to leave out when you're talking about keeping communication up with your team?
Well, overall, I'd say I'm not like a very talkative person, so I don't say a lot. I only say things that I think are important. With Leoric specifically in pro play, I think everyone kind of knows what he does, and specifically that his power spikes at 13 and 16 is he's going to be just in the back line all over their team reducing damage. So I feel like I don't really need to say that when my team is like constant yelling, like, for example, Fury will say he has a stun on this target, the DPS will say they're following up, and I feel like me saying like I'm wraith walking on him, it doesn't really contribute anything, and it might like flood the comms or confuse people. The Within tombs, uh, usually when you use that ult, there's someone you want to kill, so I just call that out, and all my team hones in on the target, and we can usually take them out.
Yeah, I think so. So what you're saying is it's not terrible for me to be saying that I call out that damage reduction as long as I'm with people who might not completely understand Leoric's role in the meta. And if I'm playing with viewers, for example, it would be perfectly fine for me to call out that their damage is reduced. But if I'm playing with Masters players, you think it might not be worth it since they already know what Leoric does.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. Just if a lot of people are talking, I don't really like to like interrupt, I guess. But if no one's saying anything, I think it's still fine to say.
Okay, that's fair. So when I kind of got up a little bit higher rank in Hero League, I noticed that a lot of the terms shifted. People were instead of saying camps and left camp, right camp, people were a lot more clear about specific terms. We heard a lot of siege and bruiser, and when I started passing through Diamond, I noticed that people stopped even saying siege and bruiser. They started saying easies and hards. Is there any other terms like that that maybe some pro teams are picking up and using for camps or for boss or for certain abilities to kind of shorten things down, make them easier? Is there any terms that your team uses or you in particularly use that would be kind of interesting for us to know?
Not really. We kind of just call them hard camps and easy camps, just a thing people have been saying for a while. I think one thing might be like slow siege is sometimes what people might say. And that means like just poke down a tower, but don't commit too hard where they can get a fight.
Okay.
That's probably the only thing I can think about.
Yeah, I definitely have seen you guys do that as well, where you'll get up to an area and you'll start taking down towers. That's actually one of the kind of the big pet peeves of mine in when I was coaching some lower ranked teams was they felt like if they weren't getting an objective, they felt like everything was wasted. And I keep seeing your team and like you'll take like half of a tower health and then the next time that tower rolls around you guys get another win, you can take like double towers out of it. And I never see people go for things if they can't take like the entire thing. Your team's really good at taking like a little bit of damage out of something and getting a lot of value out of that. So I thought that was really cool. So, what do you think for the team league players out there, or maybe open teams that are watching this as well? What do you think is probably like the most important thing to communicate? Like the one thing that you feel like if this goes missing, like if people don't talk about this, it's over.
It's definitely got to be your rotations. For me as an offlane player, if I don't call that my lane is missing and he rotates down and gets a team wipe, that's pretty much completely my fault that my team just died and we're probably going to lose the fort and objective. The most important thing is definitely rotations. So if you know someone's top and you can be down with your team, you can take camps in like 4v5 situations. You can take forts if you're a man up. Just knowing where everyone is when you can't see them on the mini map is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's rotations is where a lot of the team leagues have trouble with in general, not just in the off lane, but in a lot of other areas. One other thing that I kind of wanted to ask, since you are an off lane main and one of the better off lanes in HGC, what do you feel is like the most important thing for you to know? I mean, you kind of already answered it with the rotations, but do you feel like there's anything else that off lane mains out there should know about communication? Is there anything that like there's a major thing that you want to talk about? And I know this may be map specific. I know, for example, like Towers of Doom, the off lane gets really important because them knowing that that you're gonna grab something and then join the team afterwards, or you're gonna grab it and then just go back to soak. Like that's important. But one of them that I find that I always seem to call out about off lane is if there's a specific power spike that I might win in. For example, the only offlaner that I'm really okay with right now, like I'm pretty good with a lot of them, but I would say the main one that I play a lot is Thrall because I know where his power spikes are, and I'll tell people in chat, I'll say, hey guys, I lose this until level 7. Is that something that you really need, or again, does that come down to people should know these matchups already, so you don't really communicate that? Like, what as an offlaner, what is something that you find yourself always communicating to your team that you feel is really beneficial?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point because most of your team probably doesn't really know the matchups or they might not play off lane. So just letting them know if you're gonna win this or not is definitely a good thing. And in losing matchups, you want to let your team know the status of the lane because a lot of times you'll see if the opponent is winning the lane they'll be playing super aggressive and far up. And if you can call on your team for a gank, a lot of times you can get a free kill if they're overconfident in lane.
Okay. And continuing on with that, I feel like Dragonshire and Braxis are the two lanes that whenever I have a off lane main on my team, I'm like, oh, we've won this. Like they are strong in the off lane. They know what it is, and this particular map is huge on the off lane. Do you feel like you communicate a lot more on those maps, or is it about the same on just about every map?
Yeah, I'd say on Dragonshire mostly is where I communicate the most. It's really important to let your team know the status of the shrine because it will decide whether they can stay bottom and fight for the shrine, or if you're going to have to send another person mid to stall it until you can get the cap back. And
Okay.
like one thing I'll do on Dragonshire is I'll let my team know in advance. Like as soon as I see the person walking on the point and I can't get there, I'll be like, there's going to be DK pressure in 10 seconds. I can't get it. Or if I'm getting it, I'll tell my team to look for DK in like 15 seconds because I'm about to get on this point.
All right, so I'm going to go a little bit off topic. I did a video a while back, and it was based on tilt, and it was trying to keep people from tilting. And I said, I kind of showed a bunch of studies explaining that one of the best ways to kind of fight off like the anger and the tilt side of it is with humor. When I was watching your scrims, I noticed that there was two particular members of your team that were kind of being a little bit more funny throughout the game. And I know that this particular game, the scrims that we're watching, one, they're just scrims, so you guys may not have taken them as seriously as an actual HGC game, as well as they were on a team that wasn't an HGC team, it was an open team. So this might be something a little bit different from what it normally is, but I am curious, how much do you think humor has anything to do with these communications? Does it add to it, or do you think overall it's more just hurting everything?
I think in scrims at least, it's definitely positive to have some people with humor and just having fun because the days can be really long and you can get pretty tired. So that tends to keep the morale up. Also in Hero League, just being positive and having a good time in comms can boost your team's morale and still let them think that you have a chance to win the game, even though it might be looking bad. So I definitely think it's a good thing to be positive and be humorous while you're playing.
Okay, and this video is going to be mainly for people who are interested in team leagues. So, do you think that for I mean, pro gameplay, you might need to get a little bit more serious in the middle of a tournament, uh, but do you think for team league it would be good to have just a little bit of humor?
I think it is good to have a little humor, but if then again, if it's a really tough match, like in our HGC games, when we have all the time we have a matchup, we'll take it as seriously as possible. It really just depends if you're trying to have a good time with your friends or if you're just trying to go hard and grind
Okay,
for ranks.
no, definitely, definitely. All right, now this question is going to be a little bit strange. I know this video is focused more on Team League, but I wanted to ask. A lot of people say that Michael Udall is one of the better shot callers because they're always watching his stream. He's always shot calling. I've played with him in Hero League, and he definitely shot calls a lot. Why do you think he stands out so much when he's shot calling?
I think he stands out the most because he's probably one of the few people to do it, and he's more than just a shot caller, kinda. He's always calling out rotations, when to do camps, like to gank and like really weird bushes that you wouldn't expect. He just uh you wouldn't really expect some of the plays when he's on the other team. Like their whole team might be camping on a bush on the other side of the map when he's in your game. He just makes really smart calls that punish Hero League players that aren't used to that kind of play.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I've seen that definitely in his stream that he does. Like if they get like if they're at like a odd odd talent tier, they'll all like hide in a bush that's like might not be right in front of an objective, but it might be like way further in front that you're not really expecting. So I completely agree with that. I think that he just really makes the calls that are unusual that people don't expect in Hero League, but you might be able to expect a little bit more in Team League. Speaking of Hero League, what do you think is some of the more important calls to make in Hero League?
Um, if you're looking to shot call in Hero League, it's I'd say definitely camp timings. A lot of people neglect camps in Hero League. If you can get them out right as they're spawning and get your team to push with them, like say on Sky Temple, for example, let's say you do the bruiser at 1 minute and you get like three people to push the top lane. A lot of times Hero League players won't know how to react to that, and you can probably get like a free wall or fort damage too. And like on Volskaya, the items are really important. If you can get your turrets out while the other team isn't, you just get really big advantages from those kind of things that people often neglect.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think Volskaya, the camps in general are a little bit underrated. I find myself usually calling for keeps really early in a lot of my games just because I don't know, I always value keeps really high, especially on maps that have like really wide lanes. So I'll try to get side keeps really early. But that's pretty much it for me. Is there anything else you want to add for that you think is really important with team league communication or hero league communication or even pro plays? Or something that you want to tell us about pro communication? Because we're all sitting here and we watching these HEC games of everyone just playing their best and they all look so serious. What are you guys talking about most of the time? Is there anything that is really unexpected that we wouldn't think about that you guys talk about?
Uh, I'd say the comms are just really loud. Like when you see someone out of a position, everyone's just yelling for it. If you see them doing something really greedy, everyone's like on it right away. It's just compared to like team league, pro play is just everyone's a lot more serious and intense, I guess. It's not much difference, I guess, but I don't know.
All right. Definitely. No, I appreciate it. I'm glad and guys, we'll be able to hear a little bit of them playing in a scrim, not in a real game, not in a real HEC game, but it is definitely a real game. It's a scrim against an open team that is a very good open team. So we'll be able to see those after this. So Swabs, I really appreciate this. I can't tell you how much this is awesome. Is there anything that you want to share with people now that you've got this audience? What are you doing yourself? What's your team doing? What do you want us to know about the workings of LFM? Or do you have a stream? Do you have anything that we can all check out?
Oh, if you want to follow LFM news, you can follow LFM Esports on Twitter. If you want to check me out, sometimes I stream at Swabs Magoo on Twitch, or you can follow me at Swabs Magoo on Twitter. And thanks for having me on your show.
I appreciate it. I really do. So again, we're gonna have a couple extra games after this, and feel free to follow Swabs. He's awesome. I've seen him stream once, but I don't know. I haven't seen you stream too much lately. I probably just a lot of scrims, but I have seen you stream once. Very good, and so feel free to check that out. Follow his Twitter. I'll have all the links of that in the description below. And thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it.